Two things that don't really go well together are electricity and water, and today sadly I have both with me. It's a rainy day and what I have here is Audi's all new fully electric SUV, the Audi E-Tron. Now this thing goes against the likes of the Mercedes-Benz EQC and the Jaguar I-Pace, and today we are going to find out, is it any good, how close does it get to them, and can it impress us with this green number plate. You hear the word e-tron and you imagine something sci-fi, something from the future, something from Cyberpunk maybe. But when you look at the e-tron, that's not the first thought you get, because the design overall is pretty conventional. It is very safe and it is a sort of mature looking SUV. However, it does have some EV traits, the first being this sort of closed mouth grille. Of course, it has some slots in it so that it channels air through and helps with the cooling, but that's pretty much it. It is mostly aesthetic, but it is a Audi hallmark, that wide open grille, and you can definitely recognize this car from a distance. Then you have these nice sharp looking LED headlamps, again matrix treatment, the top of the line. And what's unique to the e-tron are these 4 LED strips. These are the LED DRLs, and I think that gives it a really nice touch as well. Low down you have these sharp looking aggressive bumpers, and again air ducts so that the air sort of channels through and flows through the car, and that helps it gain better range and more efficiency as well. And as you move over to the side, we have some other typical Audi changes as well. Now as we move over to the side, the first thing you notice are these 20-inch wheels. Very focused, sharp looking, and again the design serves a purpose yet again. All these grooves in here are to help the air channel through the car better, more efficiently, and then that means you get more range as well. The other neat touch on the e-tron is a powered charging socket. Very premium, very upmarket, feels really cool to use as well. A lot of information here. Then you have this black plastic strip on it. It is aesthetic, but it also serves a purpose. It basically shows you the location of where your battery pack lies. Now I don't know how much that information is worth, but it is good for our sort of flooded roads. You'll at least know if the battery is under the water or above it. And overall, if you see the silhouette, it's sort of a cross between the Q5 and the Q7, because it's not a proper SUV and it's not either an estate, because it's sort of a cross. If the VW Allspace is something you remember, I think that's the overall look here. But it's not bad. You get plenty of ground clearance. You can obviously raise the height thanks to air suspension. And if you want to go the extra mile and make it more SUV worthy, make it more off-roady, you can always opt for a black plastic cladding as well. That'll just buff it up, make it a bit more rough and tough looking. Now the rear is arguably the best looking angle of the e-tron, and a lot of that has to do with this lovely elongated LED bar. Stretches across the width of the car and gives it a nice futuristic appeal as well. But apart from that, everything else is more on the subtle line, because there are no fake exhausts, there are no sharp cuts, there's nothing in here that says EV, that shouts futuristic. It is a very safe and simple design. That is the whole theme of the car, and that is something that owners would really like as well, because it is the subtlety that owners like with Audis. So have they continued the same on the inside as well? Let's quickly find out. Well, it is the same treatment on the inside as well. Very subtle, nothing that jumps out at you, nothing about it says EV. You know, it's a very premium Audi. You know, that's the experience it offers. You have these lovely dual touchscreens here, again reminiscent of the A6 and A8. Not the best ones, even though they're angled towards the driver, you still have to sort of take your eye off the road, even if you have to fiddle around with the climate control, and that's not maybe a good thing. But I think that's a small niggle. Once you get used to it, maybe you can do that. Overall, again, steering, you've seen the switch gear on Audis before, you've seen the virtual cockpit, plenty of information, highly customizable. You can see a lot about your range, your EV charging times and all that kind of stuff. And apart from that, the overall equipment list is absolutely phenomenal, because there is nothing here that's been given a miss. You have a 16 speaker Bang & Olufsen audio system, panoramic sunroof, wireless charging, memory seats, soft touch doors even. And the overall cabin quality again is extremely good. That is what we know of Audis. They do their stuff really well. It might not be on the same lines as the EQC, you know, not a lot of wood in here. There's not this blue leather or stuff like that, but whatever it is very premium and upmarket. Soft touch plastics, stitched leather, brushed aluminum, piano black. I'm really trying hard to sort of find a flaw, but in terms of interior, there really isn't any. Even the sense of space here is nice and wide. It's airy. dark upholstery for the seats, but it still doesn't feel claustrophobic. And speaking of the seats, again, lovely cushioning, lots of support, and you can definitely spend long hours in here, definitely spend all your charge worth in here. However, people who buy this car also spend a lot of time in the back seat, so we're going to find out just how good that is. Now, owners who buy the e-tron for the backseat experience will definitely not have a lot to complain about, because as you can see, I have plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom. The cabin is nice and airy as well. The panoramic sunroof definitely helps, and because it's an EV, you have a flat floor. However, for the middle passengers, this sort of unit protruding won't really make sense, so it is best used as a two-seater at the back. But you get nice touches like the AC vents in the center, 4-zone climate control, of course. You get your individual climate control at the back, and you also get vents in the B pillar. A nice touch are these sun blinds, manual, but they'll do the job just fine. Then you also have some cup holders, and overall it is a very, very nice place to be. The only glitch maybe is that the backrest isn't too reclined. You know, you sit a tad upright, and that's not the best part. Also, these bolsters that sort of come out from the seat may not be ideal for every body type, but as far as I'm concerned, they are nice and broad, very comfy, and a very, very nice place to be. Now, before the Nerd Fest begins, let me quickly tell you about another highlight of the e-tron, the ride quality. You see, the suspension is tuned almost perfectly for our road conditions. The bad patches of broken roads, cuts along the way, undulations, it is all taken care of very, very easily. And of course, it has air suspension with adaptive dampers, and that changes the character of the car quite significantly, because right now I'm in comfort mode and the suspension is nice and supple, the steering is nice and light, and the whole car feels a lot more relaxed. But as soon as I toggle through and put it in dynamic, there is a good amount of change that has happened. The suspension has firmed up, steering has gained a decent amount of heft, and the motor is a lot more responsive as well. So when you're on a nice stretch of road like this one, lovely corners, nice winding roads, you will definitely enjoy being in dynamic. But for most of the time, I think comfort mode is the best. And when you're stranded in traffic, which you will be if you're going to be using this in the city, you can always turn into efficiency mode. You get a bit more range in that. Of course, the performance is slowed down, but that's not really a big problem. The other good thing about the e-tron is that it also comes with the e-quattro system. Now, of course, it is a lot more technical, but bottom line is that it drives like a proper Audi quattro car. Tons and tons of grip in the corners. There is really nothing that makes you feel unsure, and the whole system works almost seamlessly. You know, you really don't have to struggle. You don't see the power shift anywhere else, because all of that 664 Nm of torque is available at all wheels all the time. That's the beauty of an EV. Power comes from a 95 kWh battery. It is rated at 402 bhp, and that is quite enough. But if you really care about that all important 0 to 100 test, the e-tron does it in 5.7 seconds. Not the fastest in the segment, because the EQC is faster, the I-Pace is a lot faster. But again, with an EV, it is about that instant acceleration, that off-the-line acceleration that you want. If you're at the front of a red light, mash the throttle and this thing will set you back in the seat. And by the time you get to 60, you will have to inevitably brake, because there will be some idiot that has cut in front of you. Speaking of idiots in front of you, this car also gets external speakers on the outside that mimic a sort of faint sound that lets the pedestrians know that there is someone behind them, so you don't sort of creep onto them. And it is a good safety measure and really will come in handy when you're crawling through traffic. Now to the main point, the range of the e-tron. Well, Audi say that it can do between 389 to 484 kilometers. Now that is depending on how you drive, what mode you're in, what type of road conditions. But these are obviously numbers from an ideal condition drive. Usually you can expect real world figures to range between, around the 400 kilometer mark. I think that is a realistic number to go by. And by that logic, it's not so bad, because it's enough for your weekly trips from work to home. And occasionally you can always sort of go the extra mile and get out of the city, provided you don't veer off too far, because we still don't have the charging infrastructure necessary. Now, speaking of recharging, first you have these paddles back here. They are of course for recuperation, and they have 3 modes, 1, 2 and 3, 3 being the strongest. Pretty standard stuff, nothing really crazy about it. You can have it at 3 and it sort of really will drop the anchor on you, because it is quite strong, and that really helps with the charge as well. But usually I think keep it at the second setting and you should be fine. There's enough recuperation that way. Now as standard, you get a 11 kWh AC wall box charger with the Audi e-tron. Now that takes 8.5 hours from 0 to 80%, but you can also opt for a 22 kWh AC wall box charger that can reduce that time to 4.5 hours. You also have the 50 kilowatt hour DC charging that takes just under 2 hours from 0 to 80%, and overall combined you have plenty of options to use the e-tron on a daily basis. Summing up, the e-tron is pretty straightforward. It's a city EV that you can take on your once in a while farmhouse trips, provided the farmhouse is not too far from the city. Now, the reason you'd buy this over the outlandish looking Jaguar I-Pace or the very plush and premium Mercedes EQC is because you'd want the Audi badge. It drives like an Audi. On the inside, it feels like an Audi. The fit finish levels are excellent. The space, the refinement of the cabin, and of course, the extensive feature list. It has a lot going for it, and it is a very strong contender. Now, pricing is going to be very competitive. It is going to be very close to the EQC, and that means 8 figures. So you have to be a very serious buyer for this one. But if you are in the market for an EV, if you want something that is subtle, something that looks very sharp, and something that won't really be an hassle, the e-tron is the one for you. Let us know in the comments section what you think about the e-tron. Would you pick it over the Jaguar I-Pace or the Mercedes-Benz EQC? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you're notified each time we put out a video.